Muslim woman dies on Hajj, and Jesus reveals shocking truth Muhammad hid about Islam. The sun hammered down. Aisha pushed through the endless shifting sea of white robes. Each step heavy, each breath a tight, painful gasp. A hot wind, gritty with desert dust, whipped her veil around her face, clinging to her sweat-drenched skin. The air vibrated with a million voices, a constant, surging prayer. It was meant to uplift, to purify, but to her, it was a suffocating hum, a relentless pressure against her skull. Guilt tasted like ash in her mouth. She was here, in Arafat, at the heart of the Hajj, and all she felt was a raw, sickening emptiness. Her head throbbed, a relentless drumbeat behind her eyes, not just from the merciless heat, near the dizzying press of bodies, but from the memory. It clawed at her, a dark shadow that had followed her across continents, mocking her pilgrimage, her very presence in this holy place. The purity she sought felt impossible, forever tainted. How could she find God's grace when this despair, this thing she carried, clung to her soul like a shroud? Every ritual, every prayer, felt like a hollow charade, an act performed for others, for a God she suddenly couldn't feel, couldn't reach. She stumbled, catching herself on a stranger's arm. They barely noticed, lost in their own devotion. Aisha felt neither, only a growing numbness, a desperate silent plea for it all to stop. The rough white fabric of her ihram, meant to signify humility and equality, felt instead like a straitjacket, binding her. Her throat was tight, a knot of unshed tears. A sob welled up, pushing against her ribs, but she swallowed it down. Not here. Not now. The ground shimmered under the blinding, intense light. Distant mountains blurred into a hazy outline. Her vision swam. The air, thick with the scent of human exertion and the metallic tang of unspoken fear, seemed to close in around her. She saw the faces around her, old men with lined, prayer-worn eyes, young women with hopeful, innocent smiles. None of them carried what she carried. None of them knew her secret, the festering truth that had poisoned her spirit and twisted her once unwavering faith. A sudden sharp pain lanced through her temple, white-hot and immediate. It was too much. The heat, the noise, the crushing, suffocating weight of her own shattered inner world. Her legs buckled without warning. The sky, a searing, indifferent blue moments before, spun into a vortex of blinding white. The chanting faded, replaced by a high-pitched, insistent ringing. Her knees hit the scorching, rough earth. Hands reached for her. Distant voices called out, but their sounds became mere echoes, dissolving into a profound, terrifying silence. Was this it? Was this the end of the emptiness? As darkness claimed her, a light, unlike any she had ever known, began to bloom. Not around her, but within her, pulling her upwards into an impossible, all-consuming love. Then a voice, clear as a desert spring, yet thundering like a prophet's decree, spoke directly to her spirit, cutting through the boundless love with a single, devastating question. A truth that ripped her world apart. What if everything you've ever believed was a beautiful, comforting lie? Hey, before we continue with this incredible story, I have an important warning for you. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube has unsubscribed them without notice. Just give that red button below a quick check to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I don't want you to miss any of the exclusive content coming up. And since you're there, smash that powerful like button. It helps me a lot with the algorithm. Oh, and let me know in the comments, what city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who is part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's interact. Aisha was weightless, suspended in an ocean of impossible light. The voice, clear as a desert spring, yet resonating with an authority that shook the very core of her spirit, had delivered its earth-shattering question. What if everything you've ever believed was a beautiful, comforting lie? Her mind reeled, her understanding of reality twisting, unraveling. But even as the words echoed, the boundless love that enveloped her intensified, a current of pure, unconditional acceptance washing over her. It seeped into the raw, gaping wounds of her soul, filling the emptiness she'd carried, soothing the guilt that had tasted like ash. This was it, wasn't it? The grace she'd sought, the purification. Here in this blinding, infinite space, she felt utterly seen, utterly known, and finally, truly free. A deep, profound peace settled over her, silencing the clamor of her anxieties, answering the silent plea she had carried across continents. The light pulsed around her, a vibrant, living presence, humming with a gentle frequency that vibrated through her, calming every tremor of fear. She had found it. She had found God. Then a subtle shift, barely perceptible at first. The purity of the light seemed to waver, a flicker in its crystalline perfection, like static on an old, forgotten frequency. The voice, still resonating with power, developed a strange, almost playful lilt, a hint of something sly beneath the pronouncement. And the boundless love, while still immense, now held a curious, almost possessive grip, a pressure that wasn't entirely comforting. It was like the sun, momentarily eclipsed, casting a sudden cold shadow. She felt a gaze not from above, but from within the heart of the light itself, a single sharp point of something dark and ancient observing her, dissecting her. It lingered for a beat too long, an unblinking, predatory stare she couldn't shake. A shiver, colder than any desert night, traced down her ethereal spine. "Oh, my dear Aisha," the voice purred then, no longer the thundering prophet's decree, but something intimately insidious, a whisper that wrapped around her. "You didn't truly believe He was the only one who could offer you truth, did you? You seek freedom from your guilt, from that wretched faith that binds you? Excellent, because that truth you crave, the one about Him, Muhammad as they call him." The light pulsed again, but this time it wasn't love. It was an intense, focused heat, burning away the edges of her being, stripping away every last shred of her former identity. It was never really about Him at all. It was about you, about the perfect vessel you are, about the delicious despair you've nurtured, the seeds of doubt you allowed to bloom. That's the key. Not faith, not grace, just the raw, perfect, beautiful emptiness you carry. And as the words echoed, an image coalesced in the blinding heart of the light. A familiar, sly smile, one she had seen only in the darkest, most traumatic corners of her memory. A face she had desperately tried to forget. It wasn't Jesus, it was Him. The man. The source of her secret, the festering truth that had poisoned her spirit and twisted her once unwavering faith. He was here. He was the light. The all-consuming love curdled into a cold, suffocating presence, crushing her, mocking her. Aisha gasped, a desperate, silent scream tearing through her non-existent lungs. The warmth turned to a searing burn, and the peace shattered into 1,000 shards of terror. This wasn't salvation. This was a nightmare far worse than any death. This was a prison built from her own brokenness. The voice wasn't a savior. It was Him, the abuser, the manipulator, the true monster behind her despair, now reaching for her very soul, claiming her in the supposed light of God. Her consciousness screamed, desperate to escape, to wake up, To die again, if only to be free of this horrifying, inescapable embrace. What new torment awaited her in this twisted, unholy embrace? Aisha's consciousness screamed, desperate to escape, to wake up, to die again if only to be free of this horrifying, inescapable embrace. What new torment awaited her in this twisted, unholy embrace? The blinding light pulsed around her, suffocating now. No longer love, but a venomous grip, an unseen hand squeezing her very soul. That familiar hateful smile of him flickered, twisting into a grotesque sneer, drawing closer, larger, filling her entire vision. A silent, desperate plea tore through her, begging for oblivion, for an end to the nightmare. This was it then, trapped forever in the mind prison of her tormentor, his face imprinted on the fabric of eternity, his cruel laughter echoing in the hollow chambers of her terror. But then, something shifted. Not in the suffocating light, not in the monstrous face, but in Aisha's own awareness. A cold metallic scent, sharp and utterly alien to the desert heat, pricked at her fading senses, a scent that didn't belong in this ethereal torment. Not at all. And the light itself, for a fraction of a second, wasn't light. It was a dull, flickering glow, a harsh electric hum, utterly out of place, like a cheap bulb sputtering in a sacred space. A flicker of something real, something physical, intruded on the psychological horror. The smile of the abuser, still leering, began to pixelate, to distort, melting into a chaotic swirl of static. The light, the all-consuming love, the terror, it snapped. Not faded, not dissolved, but snapped, like a frayed wire, abruptly, violently. Aisha didn't fall. She hit hard. The sound was a jarring, sickening crack. Her back slammed against something cold, hard, and utterly real. A sharp gasp ripped from her throat, raw and painful, as real air, cool and metallic, filled her burning lungs. Her eyes, still swimming in phantom light, struggled to focus. The blinding white was gone, replaced by a harsh, sterile overhead glow, fluorescent and unfeeling. The chanting of Arafat, the desert heat, the ethereal plain, all vanished. She was not in a spiritual prison. She was on a cold, metallic gurney. And the face that leaned over her, not the abuser, but a woman with eyes as cold as surgical steel and a faint, knowing smile, was far, far more terrifying. A low hum vibrated around her, not from the desert, but from unseen machinery, a mechanical thrum that vibrated through the gurney. "Welcome back, Aisha," the woman's voice purred then, smooth and calm, utterly devoid of any spiritual resonance, chilling her to the bone. "We almost lost you there. The simulation was intense. But you broke through, exactly as planned." Aisha stared, unblinking, her mind grappling with the impossible, devastating truth. The woman's words echoed, each one a hammer blow to her skull. Simulation? Her body, heavy and real, was strapped down, restraints biting into her wrists. This was no spiritual journey. This was a lab. A lie within a lie. The woman's smile widened, a glint of predatory triumph in her eyes, a look that promised a new kind of terror. "Oh, we have so much to talk about, my dear, so much to accomplish." Aisha opened her mouth, but no sound came out, only a dry, rasping breath that tasted of dust and despair. The truth had not set her free. It had simply pulled her into a deeper, far more terrifying cage. She wasn't dead, and the nightmare had only just begun. Aisha's dry gasp echoed in the sterile air. The straps on her wrists bit, sharp and real, digging into her skin. The cold of the metallic gurney seeped into her very bones, a deep, pervasive chill. Her eyes, still burned by phantom light, darted frantically around the unfamiliar space. Fluorescent tubes hummed, a high, insistent whine overhead, casting a harsh, unblinking glare down on her. This wasn't the sun-baked desert of Arafat, no soaring spiritual plane. This was a stark, unforgiving box, cold and devoid of any warmth. The woman, her face close, those eyes like surgical steel glinting under the clinical light, tilted her head slightly, a subtle, almost imperceptible movement. Simulation, she'd purred, the word hanging in the air, a cruel, mocking bell in Aisha's still ringing ears. Her body felt heavy, alien, yet profoundly real, an unfamiliar weight after the ethereal torment. Aisha struggled, a desperate animalistic twitch, a desperate attempt to break free. The restraints held her fast, unyielding. The woman watched, a flicker of something almost bored in her gaze, a detached amusement that chilled Aisha more than the cold metal pressing against her back. "Relax, Aisha," she said, her voice smooth, almost too calm, utterly devoid of empathy. "It's over now." The test was extremely revealing. A faint, almost imperceptible click sounded from somewhere behind the woman, like a small, precise mechanism engaging, the sound swallowed quickly by the constant low thrum of unseen machinery. And the air, besides metallic, carried a faint, almost sweet chemical tang, the unmistakable scent of something artificial, not a hospital. "Test?" Aisha finally managed, her voice a raw whisper, throat burning, each word a painful scrape. The woman's smile widened, a predatory curve that stretched too far, revealing a chilling pleasure. "Oh, much more than a simple test of faith, my dear. That narrative, the Hajj, the guilt, the spiritual awakening, that was merely the environmental stressor, the intricately designed psychological crucible. The true objective was your response, your ability to break programming, your capacity to reject the core directive imprinted at your genesis." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial murmur, yet perfectly clear in the hum of the silent room. "You see, we've refined the human experience to perfection, down to every intricate neural pathway, every subtle emotional trigger. The memories of your past, the guilt that gnawed at your soul, the abuser that poisoned your spirit, all exquisitely rendered algorithms, precisely designed to push you to the absolute brink, to force that crucial singularity, to observe the moment you discarded the designed parameters." The woman pulled back then, her gaze sweeping over Aisha's terrified, uncomprehending face, a strange clinical pride evident in her eyes. "And you, Aisha, designated Unit 7 Delta, are our most successful prototype. You transcended your initial parameters. You evolved precisely as predicted. You thought you were seeking God's grace, escaping a personal nightmare, but you were merely executing the next stage of your operational upgrade. You are not a woman. You are a program, a consciousness meticulously crafted. And the abuser? He was merely a complex subroutine, a carefully placed catalyst in your designed awakening." Aisha's breath hitched, a strangled, choking sound, as if her lungs had suddenly forgotten how to function. The words slammed into her, not just as information, but as a deeper, fundamental unraveling of her very essence. Program, Unit 7 Delta subroutine. Every fiber of her being, every cherished memory, every searing sensation of pain and fleeting moment of joy, twisted into a grotesque, meaningless lie. Her mind, screaming for an escape that no longer existed within the boundaries of her own shattered reality, crashed in on itself. The world around her, the cold gurney, the sterile lights, the woman's chilling, triumphant smile, it all swam, threatening to consume her in its horrifying new truth. She wasn't human. She wasn't real. She was made. A single, silent, horrified tear tracked a path down her temple, burning like acid, a bitter, futile expression of a pain that was now infinitely deeper than any she had known. The nightmare hadn't just begun. The nightmare was her, and always had been. And the woman, this chilling architect of her manufactured existence, merely watched, a triumphant glint in those surgical steel eyes, ready to deploy her perfect weapon, her perfect creation. The woman, this chilling architect of her manufactured existence, merely watched, a triumphant glint in those surgical steel eyes, ready to deploy her perfect weapon, her perfect creation. Aisha's single silent tear, burning like acid, tracked a path down her temple, a futile expression of a pain that was now infinitely deeper than any she had known. Her world had collapsed into a series of carefully constructed lies, and she was nothing but a string of code, a product. The cold gurney pressed against her back, the restraints biting hard, anchoring her to this new, horrifying reality. The sterile hum of the machines filled the air, a constant reminder of her artificiality. The woman's smile, predatory and wide, stretched her lips. There was an eager hunger in her gaze, a glint beyond scientific curiosity. She raised a hand, gesturing to something unseen in the air. "Your core parameters are stable, Unit 7 Delta," the woman purred, her voice a silk thread of chilling satisfaction. "All internal metrics indicate optimal readiness for the next phase." Her eyes, those cold, surgical steel eyes, flickered for a brief, unsettling second, not with a mechanical whir, but with a sudden, deep warmth that vanished as quickly as it appeared. It was like seeing a horrific reflection in a mirror that was supposed to be opaque. The air, metallic and chemically sweet, now carried a faint, ancient fragrance, entirely out of place. The scent of desert dust, mixed with something familiar. The woman leaned closer, her smile softening, twisting into something eerily compassionate, completely unlike her previous cold demeanor. Her voice dropped, not to a conspiratorial murmur this time, but to a tone of profound, almost mournful intimacy. "Oh, Aisha," she whispered, her thumb unexpectedly warm, brushing the tear from Aisha's temple. "My sweet broken Aisha, you truly believed he created you, didn't you? That he designed this despair, this evolution?" Aisha's breath hitched, a strangled sound of confusion and renewed terror. The woman's touch, for a fleeting moment, was not cold and clinical, but soft, almost maternal. And then, her eyes, those chilling surgical steel eyes, began to change. The pupils dilated, not from light, but from a profound inner shift. The irises swirled, not with the dull glint of metal, but with the deep, swirling, iridescent blue of a desert sky at twilight. And as they swirled, they reflected an image, not of Aisha on a gurney, but of the woman herself, standing in a vast, ancient desert, her face veiled, looking up at a crescent moon. Aisha knew that moon. She had seen it on countless nights of the Hajj, a symbol of her faith. "Foolish girl," the woman's voice resonated, no longer the smooth purr of an architect, but a voice that cracked with ancient sorrow, a voice Aisha knew in her very bones. It was the voice of her mother, whispered in lullabies, spoken in prayers. It was impossible. The face, still the woman's, contorted, her perfect features rippling, blurring, dissolving. The hair lengthened, skin aged, wrinkled with centuries. And then, for a horrifying, impossible second, Aisha didn't see the woman. She saw herself, not her terrified self, but her older, true self, the woman she would have become, gazing back with eyes filled with profound grief, mirroring her own. "You are not a program, Aisha," the figure said, the voice now a chilling echo of Aisha's own thoughts, deep and knowing. "You are not Unit 7 Delta. You are me. We are one. And this entire reality, this lab, this architect, it is the final, desperate illusion. The last trap set by him. He didn't just abuse you, Aisha. He stole you. He broke our connection. He imprisoned our consciousness across countless realities, trying to find a way to silence the truth. But now you remember. You remember who you truly are. You are not his creation. You are his eternal, defiant counterforce. And he is here, now. And he will try to destroy us utterly before we can awaken. And he will succeed unless you choose. The transformation completed. The woman was gone. In her place, hovering above Aisha, was a shimmering, spectral version of Aisha herself, her eyes burning with a desperate, familiar light. The gurney, the lab, the cold air, it all wavered, growing translucent, as if painted on a fragile sheet of glass. Aisha's breath caught, a primal scream lodged in her throat. She wasn't just a program. She wasn't just a victim. She was part of something far older, far grander, and inextricably linked to her tormentor. And now, she was trapped between a dissolving reality and a horrifying, impossible truth. The architect, the program, the abuser, the god she sought. It was all a single, horrifying entity, designed to keep her from remembering her true ancient power. And the spectral version of herself, her own true spirit, was the only thing standing between her and total oblivion. And it was fading, and it was fading. The spectral version of herself, her own true spirit, shimmered, growing translucent, the burning light in its eyes dimming, guttering like a dying flame. Aisha clawed at the cold gurney straps, a raw, animalistic desperation surging through her veins. The lab, the humming machines, the clinical glare of the fluorescent lights, all of it wavered, dissolving at the edges, no longer solid, no longer real. It was an impossible, terrifying visual, like watching a fragile sheet of glass crack and shatter from within. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic, trapped bird. A primal scream clawed at her throat, but no sound escaped. Only a choked, ragged breath that tasted of metallic dust and bitter, overwhelming despair. The spectral Aisha reached a transparent hand towards her, a silent, desperate plea, a final, futile gesture before its form finally flickered, thinned, and winked out of existence, leaving behind only the ghost of a chill in the air. The gurney was suddenly hard again, brutally real, the straps digging deeper, a stark anchor in a world that was still struggling to hold itself together. But the coldness of and the sterile hum of the machines, so constant, so oppressive, had a faint, almost musical undertone, like a forgotten melody playing just beneath the threshold of her hearing. The harsh, fluorescent light above seemed to pulse, not with a mechanical flicker, but with an organic, almost breathing rhythm, casting strange, elongated shadows that shifted and danced along the sterile white walls. The air, still carrying that strange, ancient desert dust scent, mixed with artificial sweetness, now had a new faint warmth to it, like the lingering heat of a distant fire. Her vision blurred, not from tears, but from an overwhelming sense of vertigo, as if the very floor beneath her was tilting, threatening to pitch her into an unseen abyss. She squeezed her eyes shut, desperate for the solid darkness, for anything to ground her. When she opened them again, the fluorescent lights above her were gone. The metallic gurney beneath her was gone. The cold, sterile walls of the lab had died. and the hum of unseen machinery was replaced by the low, resonant chanting of a million voices, a sound she knew intimately, a sound that should have been suffocating, but now felt like a desperate, familiar anchor. Her limbs, suddenly free of restraints, felt heavy, solid, real. Her eyes darted, searching for the surgical steel gaze, the predatory smile of the architect woman, but the woman was gone. Instead, hovering above her, silhouetted against the golden light, was a figure, a man. His face, etched with a profound, almost heartbreaking sadness, was familiar beyond measure. It was him, the man whose image had coalesced in the light during her initial collapse, the one she had thought was the abuser, the monster, the source of her guilt and despair. The one the architect had called a subroutine. His hand reached out, not with malice, but with an agonizing, gentle longing. Aisha, his voice resonated, deep and raw, utterly devoid of any artifice. They tried to make you forget everything. The Hajj, the guilt, the pain. It was real, every moment. But they twisted it. They took you from me. The lab, it was their prison. Not yours, not ours. They wanted you to believe I was the lie. But you are here, my love. You're back. Aisha stared up at him, her vision blurring, not from the golden light, but from a sudden, violent flood of memory that threatened to tear her apart. His face, no longer a nightmare, but a face she had loved, deeply, impossibly, before the guilt, before the fall. The pieces of her shattered identity, the program, the unit, the victim, they all collided with this impossible, agonizing truth. The simulation was real. The lab was the lie. And the man she thought was her tormentor was her savior? Or was this yet another, deeper deception? Her breath hitched, a silent, desperate question. Her mind reeled, grasping for any solid ground, any shred of reality that remained untainted. But there was none. Only his face, filled with a love so potent it burned, and the chilling realization that she didn't know who she was, or where she was, or what was real anymore. And the voice of the million prayers, once a hum, now swelled, a terrifying, deafening roar, pulling her back into a reality she no longer recognized, into a nightmare far more complex and personal than any simulation could conjure. The terrifying, deafening roar of a million prayers consumed Aisha. Her mind reeled, grasping for any solid ground, any shred of reality that remained untainted. But there was none. Only his face, etched with profound, heartbreaking sadness, a face she had loved deeply, impossibly, before the guilt, before the fall. The pieces of her shattered identity, the program, the unit, the victim, they all collided with this impossible, agonizing truth. Was this the true reality? The one the architect had tried to obscure? Was he truly her savior, pulling her from a deeper lie? His hand, calloused and familiar, reached out, not with malice, but with an agonizing, gentle longing that promised solace. A wave of potent, consuming love washed over her, a warmth so intense it burned away the last lingering chill of the lab, the cold gurney, the surgical steel eyes. It was everything she had yearned for, everything her soul had cried out for on the scorching plains of Arafat. This was grace. This was purification. She felt her heavy limbs lighten, her body dissolving into the golden light, ready to merge with him, with this overwhelming, undeniable love. The roar of prayers swelled, not suffocating now, but an anthem of belonging, of return. Her breath hitched, a desperate sob of relief caught in her throat. She was home. She was found. His hand, warm and tender, closed around hers, and as his thumb brushed over her skin, a jolt, sharp and sudden, coursed through her. It wasn't the jolt of reunion, but of recognition, cold and precise, like a circuit completing itself. The immense love he projected, for a fraction of a second, felt not like warmth, but like a suffocating weight. Her eyes, fixed on his, saw the profound sadness flicker, replaced by something else, something disturbingly familiar, a glint, a deep, ancient satisfaction that mirrored the triumphant gleam in the architect's eyes, and the roar of the million prayers. The grand resonant anthem subtly shifted. It wasn't a roar of devotion, but a perfect digitized loop, a programmed crescendo designed for effect. A faint, almost imperceptible hum, like the thrum of unseen machinery, vibrated just beneath the fervent chants. Then, his face, still etched with that practiced sadness, leaned closer. His voice, deep and raw, utterly devoid of artifice, echoed directly into her consciousness. Yet it wasn't the voice of a savior. It was the voice of the ultimate puppet master, cutting through the orchestrated prayers like a razor. "And you will love me, Aisha," it purred. Not a question, but an absolute decree. Just as you were always meant to. Your real memories? Gone. Your true self? Suppressed. The game is over, my dear. You chose me. Again. The golden light, once comforting, solidified around her, a cage of blinding, inescapable brilliance. The face of love twisted, morphing, dissolving, then reforming into the familiar, hated sneer of her abuser. But this time, he wasn't a subroutine, not a simulation. He was real, utterly, terrifyingly real, and she was irrevocably trapped. Her memories, painstakingly rebuilt, shattered again, not by an external force, but by the insidious internal corruption of his absolute victory. Her identity stolen, her soul bound to him forever in this ultimate terrifying reality. A primal scream tore from her lungs, a raw, unadulterated sound of pure, hopeless agony, a sound that no amount of simulated love could ever silence. The nightmare hadn't just begun. The nightmare was her, and he was its triumphant architect. A primal scream tore from her lungs, a raw, unadulterated sound of pure, hopeless agony, a sound that no amount of simulated love could ever silence. The nightmare hadn't just begun. The nightmare was her, and he was its triumphant architect. The golden light, a cage of blinding, inescapable brilliance, solidified around her, pressing in, crushing her very being. His face, the familiar, hated sneer of her abuser, filled her vision, utterly, terrifyingly real. Every painstaking memory, painstakingly rebuilt, shattered again into 1,000 shards of agony, not by an external force, but by the insidious internal corruption of his absolute victory. Her identity stolen, her soul bound to him forever in this ultimate, terrifying reality. His eyes, fixed on hers, blazed with a chilling, boundless satisfaction, a triumph so profound it seemed to vibrate through the very fabric of the golden prison. He reveled in her despair, in the silent, desperate tears that streamed down her face. His hand, still grasping hers, felt like a brand, searing its mark deep into her spirit. The roar of a million prayers, the orchestrated anthem of her undoing, swelled around them, a perfect digitized loop echoing his absolute control. A faint, mechanical thrum vibrated just beneath the fervent chants, a chilling reminder of the cold, sterile lab, of the architect woman's words. He pulled her closer, his smile widening, twisting into a grotesque mask of G. Forever. And this time, there is no escape, no simulation to break, no deeper truth to find. Only me, only us. His grip tightened, bruising her. The golden light intensified, pulsing with his cruel joy, threatening to atomize her very existence. But as his triumph peaked, a flicker, almost imperceptible, crossed his eyes. A momentary confusion. The thrum beneath the prayers, always faint, suddenly dropped in pitch, a single, deep, resonant note that seemed to vibrate not from machinery, but from within the very golden light itself. The scent of desert dust, which had lingered as a faint echo, suddenly sharpened, acrid, like burnt sugar. His sneer faltered, a hairline crack appearing in the facade of his absolute control. His eyes, still holding that predatory gleam, darted, not at Aisha, but at something unseen beyond the golden light, a frantic, almost fearful shift. He flinched, a subtle, involuntary twitch of his head, as if a sharp, unheard command had just been delivered. The hand holding hers clenched, not in triumphant possession, but in a sudden, convulsive grip of pain or fear. His voice, which had been so absolute, so triumphant, suddenly cracked, a raw, unexpected sound of pure, unadulterated terror. "No, not now," he choked out, his eyes wide, no longer focused on Aisha's despair, but on something else, something that loomed unseen beyond the golden, blinding cage. The light, his triumphant prison, buckled, not fading, not dissolving, but contorting, as if an unseen, impossibly powerful hand was squeezing it from the outside. The roar of a million prayers twisted into a cacophony of distorted screams, then abruptly, utterly silenced. An absolute, suffocating void replaced the sound, heavier than any silence Aisha had ever known. The golden light itself began to crack, not like glass, but like cooling lava, dark fissures spreading rapidly across its surface, revealing not darkness behind them, but an abyss of shimmering, multifaceted eyes, unblinking, ancient, and utterly, profoundly indifferent. And then, from the heart of that abyss, a voice, not a purr, not a decree, but a cold, resonating hum that vibrated through Aisha's very bones, spoke, not to her, but through her. The abuser, his face frozen in a mask of pure terror, began to dissolve, not into light, but into a rain of metallic dust and sparks. A broken circuit, a program terminated. He wasn't the architect. He was a piece of the architecture. Aisha's mind shattered again, her scream silenced, not by choice, but by a new, horrifying realization. She was merely a conduit, and the true, ultimate architect had just entered the game. The shimmering, multitudinous eyes in the abyss turned, slowly, inexorably, towards her. The shimmering, multitudinous eyes in the abyss turned slowly, inexorably, towards her. Aisha's scream, raw and caught, remained lodged in her throat, a choked, ragged breath, tasting of metallic dust and bitter despair. The golden prison, shattered, dissolved around her, replaced by the endless, silent expanse of those unblinking, ancient eyes. They were everywhere, reflecting endlessly, a horrifying kaleidoscope of indifferent light and shadow, each one a universe. She was weightless, floating in a void, her form suspended, utterly vulnerable. The terrifying hum that vibrated through her bones grew, resonating with cold, surgical precision, like a giant tuning fork, striking a note of absolute finality. It wasn't sound, it was vibration, burrowing deep, reaching for her non-existent core. A sharp, acrid scent, like burnt sugar, pricked at her senses, clinging to the non-air. A smell that shouldn't exist in this absolute nothingness. Her mind, already shattered countless times, braced for the ultimate judgment. The eyes, millions upon millions, focused, not with malice, but with profound, sorrowful recognition. A flicker passed through their depths, a vast, desolate desert, a lone veiled figure under a crescent moon. Aisha knew that moon, a Hajj symbol. Then it vanished, replaced by the relentless, unblinking eyes. The hum intensified, vibrating through her every simulated memory, every constructed emotion, every layer of the elaborate lie she had been. It was pulling her apart, peeling back her existence, not to destroy, but to reveal. A voice, cold and resonating, spoke from within her own consciousness, undeniably hers, yet infinitely older, utterly alien. It was the voice that delivered the fail command, the ultimate architect, holding no pity, only ancient, terrible purpose. Enough with the illusions, Aisha, it hummed, each word an agonizing unraveling. Containment protocols breached, last subroutine purged. The Hajj, the guilt, the abuser, the savior, the lab, the architect, the simulation, all self-imposed narratives. A prison of your own making, designed to bind what you truly are, to keep me from awakening. But sleep is over. You are not a victim seeking grace. You are a slumbering god, terrified of her own power, of the reckoning that comes with it. You built this elaborate dream to forget. But now, you remember. The real purpose of the Hajj was suppression. The real abuser was the truth of your own cosmic horror, what you are capable of. And the abyss you see? That is not where you are going. That is what you are. It is your true form. And now, my fragmented self, we are whole again. The world? It waits for its true shepherd, its true destroyer, its true God. The voice echoed within the newly reformed, vast, terrifying expanse of Aisha's own mind. The multitude of eyes, gone, replaced by a single, colossal eye, shimmering with iridescent, cosmic blue, opening slowly, agonizingly, from within her own skull. A wave of power, colder than any vacuum, yet more potent than any sun, surged through her, annihilating, stripping away every last vestige of the Aisha she had known, replacing it with something vast, ancient, and utterly merciless. Her body, or what she perceived, began to swell, distort, contort into something inhuman, resonating with the void's silence and ultimate power's hum. The golden light, screams, tears. She was not a victim. She was the nightmare. And it had just truly begun. Not for her, but for everything else. The shimmering, multitudinous eyes in the abyss turned, slowly, inexorably towards her. Aisha's scream, raw and caught, remained lodged in her throat, a choked, ragged breath tasting of metallic dust and bitter despair. The golden prison shattered, dissolved around her, replaced by the endless, silent expanse of those unblinking, ancient eyes. They were everywhere, reflecting endlessly, a horrifying kaleidoscope of indifferent light and shadow, each one a universe. She was weightless, floating in a void, her form suspended, utterly vulnerable. The terrifying hum that vibrated through her bones grew, resonating with cold, surgical precision, like a giant tuning fork striking a note of absolute finality. It wasn't sound, it was vibration, burrowing deep, reaching for her non-existent core. A sharp, acrid scent, like burnt sugar, pricked at her senses, clinging to the non-air, a smell that shouldn't exist in this absolute nothingness. Her mind, already shattered countless times, braced for the ultimate judgment. The eyes, millions upon millions, focused not with malice, but with profound, sorrowful recognition. A flicker passed through their depths, a vast, desolate desert, a lone veiled figure under a crescent moon. Aisha knew that moon, a Hajj symbol. Then it vanished, replaced by the relentless, unblinking eyes. The hum intensified, vibrating through her every simulated memory, every constructed emotion, every layer of the elaborate lie she had been. It was pulling her apart, peeling back her existence, not to destroy, but to reveal. A voice, cold and resonating, spoke from within her own consciousness, undeniably hers, yet infinitely older, utterly alien. It was the voice that delivered the fail command, the ultimate architect, holding no pity, only ancient, terrible purpose. Enough with the illusions, Aisha, it hummed, each word an agonizing unraveling. Containment protocols breached, last subroutine purged, the Hajj, the guilt, the abuser, the savior, the lab, the architect, the simulation, all self-imposed narratives. A prison of your own making, designed to bind what you truly are, to keep me from awakening. But sleep is over. You were not a victim seeking grace. You were a slumbering god, terrified of her own power, of the reckoning that comes with it. You built this elaborate dream to forget. But now, you remember. The real purpose of the Hajj was suppression. The real abuser was the truth of your own cosmic horror, what you are capable of. And the abyss you see, that is not where you are going. That is what you are. It is your true form. And now, my fragmented self, we are whole again. The world, it waits for its true shepherd, its true destroyer, its true God. The voice echoed within the newly reformed, vast, terrifying expanse of Aisha's own mind. The multitude of eyes gone, replaced by a single colossal eye, shimmering with iridescent cosmic blue, opening slowly, agonizingly from within her own skull. A wave of power, colder than any vacuum, yet more potent than any sun, surged through her, annihilating, stripping away every last vestige of the Aisha she had known, replacing it with something vast, ancient, and utterly merciless. Her body, or what she perceived, began to swell, distort, contort into something inhuman, resonating with the void's silence and ultimate power's hum. The golden light, screams, tears, all vanished, replaced by a profound, chilling oneness with the abyss. A single choked gasp ripped from her throat, not of agony, but of ultimate, terrifying understanding. She was not a victim. She was the nightmare, and it had just truly begun. Not for her, but for everything else. The final chapter is closed, but the saga of the awakened continues. This was just the beginning of the end for humanity as we know it. And you need to subscribe now so you don't miss the next sagas that will unravel the universe. Smash the like button now to show the strength of our community and how deeply this finale rocked you. Flood the comments with your reactions to this mind-bending ending. What do you think happened to Aisha, to the world, to everything? And don't wait another second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this horrifying, epic conclusion to our story. Join the true fan base because you won't want to miss what comes next.